My name's Anna, I just turned 27, and I was about to marry Jake, my college sweetheart. Everything was going smoothly until my mom called out of the blue. Anna, sweetie. Her voice was way too chipper. What kind of suit do you think Tom should wear when he walks you down the aisle? I nearly choked on my coffee. Tom was her latest conquest. Some younger guy I'd seen maybe twice or thrice. Mom, what are you talking about? Grandpa's walking me down the aisle. There was a long pause. Then she exploded. What? You can't do that to me, Anna. Tom needs to practice being a father. He has a teenage daughter, you know. He needs to know how it feels to walk his little girl down the aisle. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom, I'm not his little girl. I'm not even related to him. Don't be so selfish, Anna. This is important for our relationship. That's when I lost it. I'm not gonna be your boyfriend's guinea pig. Let him practice at someone else's wedding. I hung up and ignored her calls after that. But as I sat there, fuming, memories started flooding back. Memories I'd tried hard to forget. Dad died when I was 10. After that, Mom went off the deep end with men. She worked for a trucking company, and our house became a revolving door for every Tom, Dick, and Harry passing through town. Anna, meet your new daddy, she'd say, hanging off some scruffy guy's arm. A week later, he'd be gone, replaced by the next one and only. I hated it. The parade of men, the constant drama, the instability. Mom was obsessed, throwing herself at these guys like her life depended on it. And each time they left, which they always did, she'd be a wreck until the next one came along. One time, I came home from school to find Mom sobbing on the couch. He was supposed to be the one, she wailed. We were gonna get married. Who, Mom? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Bill. You remember Bill, don't you? He said he loved me. I didn't have the heart to tell her I couldn't keep track of all the Bills and Toms and Joes that had passed through our lives. It's okay, Mom, I said, patting her back awkwardly. There'll be someone else. And there always was. Within a week, she was all smiles again, introducing me to yet another perfect man. As I sat there, remembering all this, my phone buzzed again. Mom, for the 10th time. I hit ignore and tossed the phone aside. Some things never change, I thought bitterly. Here I was, about to start my own family, and Mom was still trying to use me in her desperate attempts at love. As the years went by, I found myself spending more and more time at my grandparents' place. It was a refuge from the chaos at home, a place where I could just be a kid without worrying about which strange man would be sitting at our breakfast table the next morning. I stopped bothering to learn their names. What was the point? They never stuck around long enough for it to matter. But there was one day I'll never forget, no matter how much I want to. I was 14, trudging home from another crappy day at school. All I wanted was to grab a snack and lock myself in my room. Instead, I walked into World War III. Mom was in the living room, screaming and pulling the hair of some woman I'd never seen before. The strange woman was giving as good as she got, shrieking like a banshee. You husband-stealing whore, the woman yelled, taking a swing at Mom. Mom ducked and spat back, he told me he was single. Don't blame me for your failed marriage. And there, lounging in Dad's old armchair, was Mom's latest boyfriend. He was watching the whole thing with a shit-eating grin on his face, like this was the best entertainment he'd had in years. I stood there, frozen, my backpack slipping off my shoulder. The boyfriend noticed me first. He winked and put a finger to his lips, like we were sharing some kind of secret. I bolted to my room and slammed the door. Later that night, I heard Mom crying as the boyfriend left with the other woman. Apparently, she was his wife. Mom cried all night. I didn't sleep a wink. A few more months passed. I hit 15, and suddenly Mom's parade of losers took on a new, creepy dimension. I'd catch them leering at me when Mom wasn't looking. It made my skin crawl. Then came the day that changed everything. I was in my room, trying to drown out the sound of Mom giggling with her latest soulmate on the phone. There was a knock at the front door, then voices raised in argument. Curious, I crept out to the hallway. There stood Grandpa and Grandma, looking madder than I'd ever seen them. Grandpa's voice was like steel. "This has to stop, Linda. You're bringing strange men into the house with a teenage girl here. It's not safe, and it's not right." Mom's face turned red. "You just don't want me to be happy. You've always tried to control my life." "That's not true and you know it," Grandma cut in. "We want you to be happy, but not at Anna's expense. Have you even thought about what kind of example you're setting for her?" "I'm a great mother," Mom shrieked. "Anna loves me." That's when Grandpa noticed me in the hallway. His expression softened for a moment, then hardened again as he turned back to Mom. "Linda, you're my daughter and I love you. But I love Anna too, and right now, she needs protection, even if it's from you." I stood there, frozen in the hallway, as Grandpa's words hung in the air. Then he turned to me, his eyes soft but determined. "Anna, go pack your things. You're coming to live with us." I didn't hesitate. "Okay, Grandpa," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I turned and practically ran to my room, my heart pounding. As I threw clothes into a duffel bag, I could hear Mom's weak protests from the living room. "You can't just take her. I'm her mother." Grandpa's voice was calm but firm. "Linda, think about it. It'll be easier for you to find a man without Anna around." There was a long pause, and then I heard Mom's voice, sounding almost relieved. "Well, I suppose you're right. Maybe it would be better for everyone." As we walked out the door, I glanced back at Mom. She was already on her phone, probably lining up her next date. She didn't even look up as I left. Living with my grandparents was like entering a whole new world. Suddenly, there was structure, stability, and genuine care in my daily life. Grandma always had breakfast ready in the morning, and we'd sit together, talking about my plans for the day. Grandpa would drive me to school, using the time to chat about my classes or just tell silly jokes to make me laugh. I still went to the same school, so that part of my life stayed constant. But everything else changed, for the better. I had a quiet place to do my homework, without worrying about what drama I'd walk into when I left my room. I started bringing friends over, something I'd never done at Mom's house. My grades improved, and I even joined the debate team. Grandma and Grandpa came to every debate competition, every school event. They were there, front and center, cheering me on. It was a kind of support I'd never experienced before. As for Mom, well, she faded into the background of my life. We talked on the phone sometimes, but the conversations were always short and superficial. Years passed this way. Before I knew it, I was putting on my cap and gown, ready to graduate high school. To my surprise, Mom showed up at the ceremony. She sat with my grandparents, looking uncomfortable and out of place. After I got my diploma, she gave me a quick hug. "I'm proud of you, sweetie," she said, but her eyes were already darting around the crowd. "Thanks, Mom," I replied, not knowing what else to say. "Listen, I've got to run. I have a date with this amazing guy I met last week. You understand, right?" And just like that, she was gone, leaving me standing there in my graduation gown, watching her hurry out of the auditorium. Thanks to my grandparents' generosity and support, I headed off to college with a spring in my step and hope in my heart. I decided to major in finance, joining the investment management program. That's where I met Jake. We started off as steady buddies, cramming for exams and bitching about our hard-ass professors. Jake was easy to talk to, with a dry sense of humor that never failed to make me laugh. As the semesters flew by, our friendship deepened. It wasn't until our senior year that things changed. We were pulling an all-nighter for our portfolio management final when Jake looked at me, his eyes bleary from lack of sleep, and said, "You know, Anna, I think I'm in love with you." And just like that, we were a couple. It felt natural, like the logical next step in our relationship. By the time we graduated, we knew we wanted to spend our lives together. Now here we were, planning our wedding. It should have been the happiest time of my life, but Mom had to go and complicate things, as usual. I'd only met her latest boyfriend, Tom, a handful of times when I visited her. He was younger than her, probably in his late 30s, with a teenage daughter from his previous marriage. He seemed nice enough, I guess, but I couldn't for the life of me understand why Mom thought he should walk me down the aisle. After Mom's phone call, I knew I needed to talk to Grandpa. I drove over to my grandparents' house, the place that had been my true home for so long. Grandma greeted me with a hug and a plate of cookies. "What's wrong, sweetie? You look upset." I sighed, sinking into the familiar comfort of their couch. "It's Mom. She's got some crazy idea about her boyfriend walking me down the aisle at my wedding." Grandma and Grandpa exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. "What do you want to do, Anna?" Grandpa asked gently. I looked at him, this man who had been more of a father to me than anyone since Dad died. "I want you to walk me down the aisle, Grandpa. You're the one who's been there for me. You're the one who saved me." Grandpa's eyes got misty. He cleared his throat gruffly. "Well, if that's what you want, I'd be honored. But if you decide you want your mother's friend to do it, I'd understand that too." I shook my head firmly. "No, I don't need to choose. I made my choice a long time ago. It's you, Grandpa. It's always been you." Grandma came over and hugged us both. "Your mother isn't going to like this," she warned. I sighed. "I know, but it's my wedding. Don't I get a say?" Just then, my phone buzzed. It was Jake. I put him on speaker. "Hey babe, how'd it go with your grandparents?" I filled him in quickly. When I finished, there was a pause. "Jake, you still there?" "Yeah, I'm here," he said. "Look, Anna, you know I support you, right? Whatever you decide about this, I'm in your corner. If you want your grandpa to walk you down the aisle, then that's what should happen. Your mom, well, she'll just have to deal with it." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. This was why I loved Jake. He got it. He understood. "Thanks, Jake," I said softly. "I love you." "Love you too. See you tonight?" After I hung up, I looked at my grandparents. They were smiling at me, pride evident in their eyes. I thought I'd made myself clear, but Mom wasn't about to let it go that easily. My phone rang constantly over the next few days, always her number flashing on the screen. Finally, I answered, bracing myself for the storm. "Anna, you need to reconsider this," Mom said, not even bothering with a hello. "Tom really wants to walk you down the aisle. It would mean so much to him." I pinched the bridge of my nose, feeling a headache coming on. "Mom, I've already told you. Grandpa is walking me down the aisle. End of story." "But Anna, you don't understand. This could really strengthen my relationship with Tom. He might get offended if I can't convince you. Don't you want me to be happy?" I lost it. "Your boyfriend's whims are your problem, Mom. I'm busy planning my wedding. Please, just stop." There was a pause, then Mom's voice turned cold. "Fine. If that's how you want to be, maybe I won't come to the wedding at all." The old me might have backpedaled, might have tried to smooth things over. But I wasn't that scared little girl anymore. "You know what, Mom? If that's how you feel, then don't come. This is supposed to be the happiest day of my life, and I don't need your drama." I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking with anger and something else, relief, maybe? A few days passed, and I started to relax. Maybe Mom had finally gotten the message. Maybe she'd cool off and we could talk things through like adults. I should have known better. I was at work, deep in a financial report, when my boss's assistant came to my desk. "Anna, Mr. Thompson wants to see you in his office." Confused, I made my way to the corner office. As soon as I opened the door, I knew something was wrong. There, sitting across from my boss, were Mom and Tom. Mom's face was streaked with tears, her makeup a mess. As soon as she saw me, she let out a wail. "Oh, Anna, how could you be so heartless? Refusing your own parents like this." I stood there, shell-shocked, as she pointed first to herself, then to Tom. She turned to my boss, her voice pitched for maximum dramatic effect. "Mr. Thompson, please, you have to talk some sense into her. She's tearing this family apart." Mr. Thompson looked deeply uncomfortable, his eyes darting between Mom and me. Before I could say a word, Mom stood up, grabbed Tom's hand, and swept past me out of the office. As she passed, she shot me a look of pure triumph. As the door closed behind Mom and Tom, leaving me alone with Mr. Thompson, I felt like I might throw up. My face burned with embarrassment as my boss leaned back in his chair, eyebrows raised. "So, Anna," he said slowly, "care to explain what that was all about? What's this about tearing apart the family?" Reluctantly, I gave him a quick rundown of the situation: Mom's demand that her boyfriend walk me down the aisle, my refusal, and the resulting drama. As I talked, I could see his expression changing from confusion to understanding to, was that sympathy? When I finished, he let out a long whistle. "Well, I'll be damned. You know, Anna, your mother reminds me a lot of my ex-wife." "Sir?" I said, not sure where this was going. He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "Yeah, always making everything about her, no matter who got hurt in the process. That's why I divorced her, actually. Couldn't take the constant drama anymore." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "So, you understand?" "Oh, I understand all right," he said, nodding. "And for what it's worth, I think you're handling this a hell of a lot better than I would have at your age." I almost sagged with relief. "Thank you, sir. I really am sorry about all this." His face grew serious. "That said, Anna, we can't have this kind of disturbance in the office. The company doesn't need that kind of drama, you know?" I left his office in a daze, relief warring with anger. How dare Mom show up at my workplace like that? She could have seriously damaged my career. My first stop was the security desk. I explained the situation to Frank, the head of security, who'd always been kind to me. "Don't you worry, Anna," he said, his weathered face creased with concern. "I'll make sure they don't get in again. You just focus on that wedding of yours." Back at my desk, I opened my email. My hands were shaking as I typed, but I forced myself to keep going. "Mom, I can't believe you showed up at my office today. You could have jeopardized my job with that stunt. I've tried to be understanding, but this is the last straw. I'm writing to inform you that you are no longer invited to my wedding. Your boyfriend is not invited either. Please do not try to contact me or show up at my workplace again. I need space from you and your drama. I hope someday you can understand why I'm doing this, but right now, I need to protect myself and my happiness. Anna." I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then sat back, feeling drained but oddly liberated. The next day, I called Grandma and Grandpa to let them know what had happened. There was a long silence after I finished speaking. "Oh, sweetie," Grandma said finally, her voice thick with emotion. "You did the right thing. It's not easy, but sometimes we have to set boundaries, even with family." Grandpa's voice was gruff when he spoke. "We're proud of you, Anna. And we'll be there on your big day, no matter what." Over the next few weeks, Jake and I threw ourselves into wedding planning. We decided on a relatively small affair, about 50 people, just our closest friends and family. Every time I looked at the guest list, I felt a pang at Mom's absence. But then I remembered her behavior, her selfishness, and I knew I'd made the right choice. Jake's parents were wonderfully supportive through it all. His mom helped me pick out my dress, and his dad offered to handle the music for the reception. They never once mentioned the drama with my mom, but their quiet support meant the world to me. The big day had finally arrived. I stood just outside the church doors, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. Grandpa stood beside me, looking dapper in his tuxedo, his eyes misty with emotion. The wedding march began to play, and the door swung open. I could see Jake waiting for me at the altar, his face lighting up as he saw me. This was it. This was the moment I'd been dreaming of. We'd barely taken 2 steps when a commotion erupted behind us. I turned, my stomach dropping as I saw Mom and Tom pushing their way through the doors. "Stop!" Mom shrieked, her face red with anger. "This isn't right. Tom should be walking her down the aisle." I couldn't believe it. Even now, even here, she was trying to make this about her. "Mom," I hissed, "what are you doing? You're not invited." She ignored me, turning to Grandpa instead. "Step aside, old man. This isn't your place." I felt rage boiling up inside me. "How dare you," I spat. "How dare you try to ruin my wedding day because of your stupid whim? Get out." Mom's face crumpled, and the waterworks started. It was a performance I'd seen 1,000 times before. "Oh, Anna," she wailed, "how can you be so cruel? After everything I've done for you? I raised you all alone after your father died." I was about to respond when Grandpa stepped forward, his voice calm but steely. "That's enough, Linda. Everyone here knows your reputation. Everyone knows who really raised Anna. You need to leave. Now." Mom looked around, seemingly noticing the guests for the first time. Dozens of faces stared back at her, a mix of shock, disgust, and second-hand embarrassment clear in their expressions. No one was buying her act. Her face hardened, the fake tears disappearing in an instant. "Fine," she snarled. "If that's how you want it, Anna, then I'm done. I disown you. I have Tom now, a man who actually appreciates me. You've always been stupid and arrogant anyway." I felt like I'd been slapped, but before I could respond, Grandpa stepped forward again. "Well, Linda," he said, his voice cold, "if that's how you feel, then let me make something clear. You're out of my will. And you're out of my house. It's my property, and I want you gone by the end of the week." As Grandpa's words echoed through the church, I watched the color drain from Mom's face. She turned to Tom, clearly expecting his support, but his expression had completely changed. He glanced at Grandpa, then back at Mom. "Wait, did he just say you're out of his will? And kicked out of the house?" Mom nodded weakly, her eyes pleading. Tom's face hardened. "Well, in that case, we're done. I don't need you without money. I can find someone younger anyway." With that, Tom turned and walked out of the church, leaving Mom standing there in shock. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, Mom let out a wail that made my skin crawl. "You," she screamed, pointing at me. "This is all your fault. You've ruined everything." She lunged towards me, but Jake stepped in front of me protectively. At that moment, 2 police officers entered the church, likely called by one of the guests. "Ma'am," one of the officers said, approaching Mom, "we're going to need you to calm down and leave the premises." But Mom was beyond reason. She began to sob and scream, hurling insults at everyone as the officers gently but firmly escorted her out. Her screams echoed through the church even after the doors closed behind them. We took a 30-minute break to regroup. When we returned, the ceremony was beautiful. As Jake and I exchanged our vows, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. This was right. This was how it was meant to be. The reception that followed was filled with love and support. Throughout the evening, guests approached us to offer their congratulations and support. Jake's parents came up to us, both of them misty-eyed. "Anna, dear," his mother said, "we want you to know that you're part of our family now. We love you, and we'll always be here for you." Even my boss, Mr. Thompson, pulled me aside. "You've got grit, kid," he said, a hint of admiration in his voice. "Don't ever let anyone tell you different." As the weeks passed, Jake and I settled into our new life together. We found a cozy apartment to rent near our workplaces. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours, and we loved making it our home. Grandpa made good on his word and evicted Mom from his house. Jake and I decided to rent it out for some extra income. It felt good, turning something that had been a source of pain into something positive for our future. We didn't hear much from Mom after the wedding fiasco. According to neighborhood gossip, she was renting a small apartment across town and was back to her old habits, cycling through men in search of the one. Part of me felt sad for her, but a larger part felt relieved. For the first time in my life, I wasn't responsible for her happiness. I wasn't caught in the crossfire of her drama. One evening, about 6 months after the wedding, Jake and I were looking through our wedding album. We came to a photo of me and Grandpa walking down the aisle, both of us beaming. "You know," Jake said, squeezing my hand, "I'm really proud of you. The way you handled everything with your mom, you're amazing." I leaned into him, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. "I couldn't have done it without you. Without all of you, your family, my grandparents. You guys are my real family." As I sat there, surrounded by love and support, I realized something. The day of my wedding hadn't gone as planned. It had been messy and dramatic and painful. But it had also been a turning point. It was the day I finally broke free from the cycle of manipulation and guilt that had defined my relationship with Mom for so long.